Our second scripture is Psalm 23, and you can follow along and even say it with me if you like. It's on page 501 in the Old Testament section of your Pew Bibles. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. A show I have enjoyed watching recently is the popular new HBO series called The Last of Us. And maybe I shouldn't use that word enjoyed, because it's actually a very intense viewing experience. It is definitely not for children. And the premise of the show, though, is that 20 years ago, there was a pandemic that resulted in a mass fungal infection that transforms people into violent, zombie-like creatures with heads that look like mushrooms. Society has completely disintegrated. And in the middle of all this, there is one young teenage girl named Ellie who somehow has immunity to this infection. The leader of an anti-government group hires a smuggler named Joel to take Ellie to a place where doctors can hopefully tap into her immunity and create a vaccine. So Joel and Ellie must journey west across what is now a very violent, very dangerous country. They encounter everything from desperate criminals to attacks by hordes of infected people, to a religious cult that survives by cannibalism, to betrayal by the people who are supposed to save them. But the real heart of the show is the relationship between Joel and Ellie. We learn early on that Joel once had a teenage daughter about Ellie's age who had died at the very outset of the pandemic. We also learn that Ellie is an orphan. And over time, the two of them grow to depend on each other. At one pivotal moment, Joel asks his younger brother to escort Ellie through the final stages of her journey, because Joel is starting to age. He fears he's slowing down. He has problems hearing in one ear, and his own abilities are weakening. He's afraid he'll get her killed. But Ellie will have none of it. She says to Joel, "Everybody I have ever cared for has either died or left me except for you. So don't tell me that I'd be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared." In a world full of evil, Joel's presence gives Ellie courage. And Ellie's presence gives Joel a reason to keep going. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. I've been preaching a lot about the power of presence lately, Presence. And I really appreciate the insights of Robert Fisher, an Episcopal priest who wrote this about Psalm 23. He says, "When you find yourself in difficult times with darkness drawing near, your close friends may come to you and try to lift your spirits. Some will say, cheer up, your problems are not so bad. Or, why not look on the bright side? Others will try to solve your problems for you. Out of caring for you, their instinct is to try and abolish the darkness. This view, however, only gives more power to the darkness. The Good Shepherd of Psalm 23 takes a different approach. The shepherd walks with you in the midst of your trials. The darkness is not changed, but rather you are changed when you receive the gift of his presence. It's presence that makes the difference. When I think about the sermon illustrations I've shared with you just over the past few months from my own life, many of them have been examples of the comforting power of human presence. I've described things like being a young girl and being afraid of thunderstorms, how the presence of my mother coming to be with me in the middle of the night would calm my fears, even though it didn't make the thunder any quieter. I've told about picking up my baby daughter when she was crying and how she instantly calmed down and stopped crying, not because she needed feeding or changing, she just needed me. During one of our new Noels this past year, I told the story of how I really dreaded going through a haunted house on Halloween, but I just grabbed Dusty, my very patient and gracious boyfriend, around the waist, kept my head down, and just kind of shuffled through the entire haunted house with my head down, buried in his back. And I was even laughing a little bit by the end because Dusty was with me. I was okay. And you have your own stories too about people who were there for you and comforted you with their presence. Grandparents who showed up when nobody else did. Beloved dogs who kept watch next to you on your bed and would not leave your side when you had COVID. Bosses and teachers and coaches and spouses, even strangers who have been with you when it mattered the most in surprising and life-changing ways. But you know, we're human. Last week, we read the long story of Jesus and the woman at the well. And I mentioned how the gift that Jesus gave to the woman was the gift of truly seeing her. He saw her. How important it is that we all try to see one another clearly, and yet only Jesus gets it right every single time. And it's the same thing here. We humans can give each other the wonderful gift of being present, but eventually we reach our limits. And people we count on either let us down or aren't there anymore. I remember one of the things I really loved about my late husband, Rod, was how safe I felt around him. In fact, when I was serving as associate pastor in Lee Summit, Missouri, with a tiny little staff that had been pulling together during a really tough time in the life of that church, I used to joke that my Rod and my staff really did comfort me. Rod would always stop what he was doing when I needed to vent about a problem or a difficult person. He always believed the best about me, and he really did accept me just as I am, which is a pretty big deal because I'm more of a challenge than I look. But then the day came when he was just gone, and I had to face life without him. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. In the news this week, we've heard much about the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank, which had become the 16th largest bank in America at the time of its failure. And now we're hearing about other banks that are needing some intervention. We're talking about banks. You got to be able to count on banks. We're supposed to be able to count on a lot of things like outliving our kids, retiring while we still have our health, crossing the street safely in a crosswalk. But the reality is the only, and I mean the only guarantee we get is that God is with us. God and only God, with us everywhere, all the time, before we were born, all our lives long, and into the next one. God is with us whether we are happily married, happily single, unhappily widowed. God is with us no matter our size, shape, color, nationality, gender, sexuality, or age. God is with us whether we're living our best life now or doing well just to stay sober and not throw things at people. We fear no evil, not because evil things don't happen, but because when they do, and they do, God is with us. And it's not that we never feel afraid, but we don't let the fear take charge of us. We don't follow the fear. We follow the shepherd. Now, let's look at where the shepherd leads us. Green pastures, still waters, right paths, which sometimes lead us right through the darkest valley. I'm gesturing at our beautiful window with the sheep tranquilly grazing and sipping cool water. On the other side of that dark valley, the house of the Lord, with a table prepared before us, right in front of our enemies, whoever they may be. And this is kind of annoying. Notice how the enemies are not destroyed. They're not destroyed. They're still there. They're right there with us. But instead of having to fight them or show them how right we are, we just pull up a chair to the table God is setting right in front of us. Now, look what's behind us. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. The word used here for follow can better be translated as pursue. Surely, goodness and mercy shall pursue me all the days of my life. In shows like The Last of Us, the characters are always running from somebody. Somebody's always out to get them, hurt them, hunt them down. There's a great scene in episode 8 of The Last of Us where Ellie has managed to escape, just barely, from some men who've been trying to hurt her. And as she's catching her breath, Joel, who's been frantically looking for her to try to help her, comes up behind her and touches her shoulder. And Ellie, who's deeply traumatized by what has happened to her and doesn't know that it's Joel, starts screaming, "No, no, no, get off of me." And Joel turns her around to face him, and he takes her by the face and says, "It's me, it's me." And Ellie looks at him, just shocked, and finally just throws herself into his arms as Joel says, "It's okay, it's okay. Baby girl, I got you." Do you ever feel like you're running from something? Do you ever find yourself living with a constant feeling of too much pressure, too much to do, too much bad news, too many people criticizing you, too many people wanting something from you? Do you ever have those nightmares where somebody's chasing you? Is your pain making you sad? Is your anxiety wearing you out? When we find ourselves in those valleys, that's when God comes up behind and grabs us and says, "It's me. It's me. It's okay. I've got you." When we celebrate the sacrament of baptism in a little while, that's another way that God comes up and says, "It's okay. It's okay. I've got you." Goodness and mercy are out to get us, and they won't give up until they catch us. If I ever get two puppies, I'm going to name them Goodness and Mercy, just for the fun of having goodness and mercy literally follow me around and remind me of how God has my back. The Lord is our shepherd. We shall not want. He makes us lie down in green pastures. He leads us beside still waters. He restores our souls. He leads us in right paths for his name's sake. Even though we walk through the darkest valley, we fear no evil, for you are with us. Your rod and your staff, they comfort us. You prepare a table before us in the presence of our enemies. You anoint our heads with oil. Our cups overflow. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.